You're listening to the Career Diaries with Brianna or Sherry, where each week we laugh and learn with industry experts, talk through the highs and lows of their career journeys, and unlock the secrets to career success in any field. Email bri@careerdiariespodcast.com. That's BRI@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the show.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Career Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Autry, and I'm joined today by the awesome Roz Hajian. She is the performance marketing lead at Sleeper, and she's going to be chatting about everything under the sun, from riffs to the tech landscape to marketing to, lessons learned along the way. So excited for this one.
Yep, looking forward.
Yeah. So what shows are you watching right now?
Well, I just finished Love is Blind last night. I no spoilers. Obviously, it just came out, but I could write a dissertation on this show. I think it's incredible.
It's fascinating. I did a deep dive last night. I'm not done. I'm not caught up. Because it's difficult to get my boyfriend to commit to that TV time, but he also wants to watch it with me. So I'm he's holding me back. But but I did a deep dive on the three men that are the issues this season. And 95% of what's come out about them is fake, I guess.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Don't read the headlines. Don't read just the headlines. Read the article, because you realize very quickly, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but the Jimmy, Jeremy, and Trevor situation, or because I'm always yeah, these guys suck,
Right.
Or the article, I'm no, this isn't what it seemed like at all.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have some research to do after this.
Yeah. No, read it and text me on the side and let me know what you think. So Love is Blind, a great show. So I want to jump right in and with some stats today. So I was doing some research last night. A lot of the questions I get are kind of about the current tech landscape and the job market, et cetera. So I kind of want to use this time to address some of that. So according to Crunchbase, in 2023, more than 191,000 workers in US-based tech companies were laid off. I'm just going to shoot out some of the top companies here. Amazon laid off 16,000 people. Alphabet laid off 12,000 people. Microsoft laid off 100,000 people. 11,000 people. And Meta laid off 10,000 people. So on a personal level, you were affected by a riff at your previous job at Robin Games. So can you kind of talk about what that was like and what the process was like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we're in such a dire position in tech that I actually believed it when you said 100,000 for Microsoft. Oh, that actually makes sense, doesn't it? But glad it was only 10,000. So my experience at Robin Games, I was there for 2 years, and I was laid off in early 2023. So this was the first layoff in my career. And thinking back to that moment, I did know that it was coming because of the role that I had at the company. But the shock that set into my system was a brand new feeling. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Some days I'd wake up feeling fine. Some days I would wake up feeling like an absolute failure. And overall, looking back on this time in my life, the 9 months that I was unemployed, it was actually a really beautiful experience for me. I reached this state of bliss and peace that I really have never reached in my adult life. And there were so many moments throughout my days where I would just be flooded with gratitude for being in that present moment. I'd go out on my balcony, the sun is shining, I would just sit there for a moment, soak it in, and be so grateful that I could be in that moment. And just no one needed anything from me. I was stress-free. And so overall, it really had a positive impact on me, and it allowed me to re-enter the job market feeling good. So I am oddly grateful for that experience.
Yeah. I can relate. The feeling when you can actually unplug in between jobs it's a privilege that a lot of people don't get to experience. And it is special. It's kind of the first time probably in like your life, because before that it was school. And, maybe the last time I ever, besides in between jobs, the last time I ever fully unplugged was like a summer break
Mhm.
when I was like in school and didn't have a job outside of school.
Right. Yeah. And I haven't had a break since I left school. I started my first job right out of college. I was there for a while and then jumped to Robin Games, and I was there for 2 years, and then there was the layoff. So yeah, it was certainly an eye-opening experience, but I really wouldn't change it for the world. I had a great experience at that company. It was so valuable to try to build something from the ground up, and it was a super tough market to do so. But I got to work with some really incredible people along the way. So I'm grateful.
Yeah. You said something interesting. You said because of the job you had, you knew it was coming. Can you talk more about that?
Mhm. So I was head of growth at Robin Games. So I was responsible for all of the performance marketing needs, which we will get into. Same as my current job. I'll switch terminology a couple times in this conversation, but growth marketing, performance marketing, user acquisition, all mean the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. And so when you say you knew because of your job that you had that you'd be laid off, the assumption is that marketing always gets laid off in a riff. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
So it was a mass layoff, unfortunately. So it was the majority of the company at that time, but my job is specifically tied to revenue. So I saw the financial situation that we were in, and we had one product. So there were limited options as to what we could do to move forward.
Yeah. So the writing was on the wall and you were very aware of what the numbers were saying. That makes sense. Yeah. So you landed at Sleeper after that. You took some time off. Sounds like it was amazing. What do you do there now?
Yeah. So I'm performance marketing lead at Super. So in that role, I'm responsible for managing advertising spend across a portfolio of ad channels. So some of those you'd be familiar with are like Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But if I can explain it in simple terms, the objective of my job is to spend X money a month with the intent of paying that back, paying that ad spend back in revenue company. So we're able to do this because the revenue generated is all tied directly to the marketing campaigns that we run. That reaches the users that download the app and spend money, and that turns into revenue for our company.
Okay. And what does Sleeper as a company do?
So Sleeper, we're in a sports vertical. So we have an app, Sleeper Fantasy Sports, and it's really a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. So we're most famous for our fantasy leagues for football and basketball. We also have daily fantasy sports and have promo code ROZZY, ROZZY, for a $500 deposit match.
There you go.
Also, yeah, exactly. So we also have live scores in the app, so you can keep up to date with the games that are going on that day, and a news feed that you can tailor specifically to your sports interests.
Okay, cool. So were not a sports person before this, really, were you? Or were you? I don't
I've
remember.
always been a casual fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've always liked sports, like primarily basketball, but I'm really like expanding my interest now. I recently discovered that I love football, which is awesome. So I can't wait to get to next season.
Aren't you okay, yeah, we talked about this. You were saying you're like exploring being a Raiders fan, but not like committed.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find a home. We'll see. I think I'm a Niners faithful at this point, just being from the Bay Area. I can't help it. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can come back next year.
Yeah, man, that was tough to watch. I am obviously a basketball fan. If you're watching the video, you can see I have my Wiggins poster behind me, but football's always been tough for me. So I don't know. I think it's because you can't see their faces.
Oh, interesting.
Like I feel
How
like
about
I connect from the person on the field, and I like to be like invested in their story and who they are. And I'm like, who are they? I don't know.
Oh, okay. I've never thought about it that way. Yeah, they do a great job of going into everyone's backstories as they're playing too. So I definitely developed some personal connections to some of the players that I didn't have before just after watching a few games. So maybe I'll get you into it next year. We'll see.
Yeah, let's watch some freaking football. Okay, so Sleeper, blah blah blah. I want to dig a little bit deeper into your job and what it entails. So you talked high level about how you manage ad spend, etc. Can you talk a little bit about like what your day to day looks like for anyone who's interested in like eventually taking on a role like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So on a typical day, I'll have several meetings with our ad partners. have a good example, actually, your last episode with Cambria Seal, which was amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
I would be a client at first, as she is a ad sales team. So I would have meetings with them to talk over our performance and discover additional opportunities for us to work together at the company. Doing a lot of time in spreadsheets as well, organizing the data that we receive from those marketing campaigns so that we can make informed decisions on where to best spend that budget to produce more revenue for the company. Having syncs with the team, figuring out what their strategies are and how that all aligns together. It's every day is something a little bit different, which I love. I had a background in accounting before this, so it's pretty different. There's a lot more strategy, and I love the opportunity to generate revenue instead of managing the money that is being spent. So good change for me.
So a ton of hats and definitely a career I think that you can branch off in many directions from, which is nice. Yeah, sky's kind of the limit with you. So I want to talk about how you got to this point. You went to San Francisco State University with me, yours truly. It was a great time.
It was.
Yeah. So you graduated with what degree?
A business administration bachelor's in business.
Okay, so the smart one. I did history, so stupid.
Good information I have.
Yeah, for real. So what was your first job out of college?
So my first job was at a company called Kabam, and that was a mobile game developer. So I did have a good amount of experience going into that job because I'd worked in college in accounting. I had an internship for a couple of years, and by the time I graduated, I was working nearly full-time in accounts payable. So that allowed me to secure the job right out of college as the accounting specialist for the marketing team at Kabam. So really, I spent a lot of time doing data entry for the first year. I'll never forget. About 6 months in, I stood up from my desk and I looked around at everyone on my team and I said, can someone explain to me why we are spending all this money and where it's going? I just simply don't understand. And from that point on, I switched careers. I learned the ropes of performance marketing. I decided that I loved that. And I spent almost 7 years at Kabam on that. It was a great experience.
So from accounting to performance marketing. That's an interesting leap. So they allowed you to grow within that company. They were pretty
exactly. That was really the proponent, the reason that I stayed for as long as I did. I was able to demonstrate that I had the drive and motivation to learn, and I had people to help me do so. So it was a really valuable experience overall.
Yeah, I think that's harder and harder to find, right? I know that especially at smaller companies, it's difficult to get that growth, or you almost get a title you don't deserve too soon, or whatever. There's a myriad of things that can go wrong. I want to talk a little bit about how you moved up there. So, according to Aon, 10% of tech company employees were promoted last year, with average base salary increasing about 8%, which is not terrible. Right.
Yeah, I guess it's not in the grand scheme of things, but the 10% is what was a little bit alarming to me.
Yeah, the base salary increase is okay, considering the market, but the 10% fairly low. So at Kabam, you got promoted 4 times, and you were there for 6 years. So if anyone's listening in, kind of want to get that next promotion, what's your advice to them?
Yeah. So I consider myself very lucky in my time at Kabam because I had a manager for the majority of my time there. Shout out to Andy Berg if he's listening. That fully recognized the value that I provided and was a huge proponent for me to progress in my career as a result. So I think what would be key for the people listening is recognizing when you're in a good position like that, you have someone in your corner that's able to recognize the work that you're doing and can back you. But on the flip side, also recognize when you're not in that position. And no matter what work you do, you will not be recognized for it. I think that it's kind of hard to say a blanket statement about this because everything is a case-by-case basis. I got 4 promotions. Honestly, it should have been 5. I was past it once. And I could have thrown my hands up at that time and left over that, but what I did was I got a time frame in which I would be recognized for my effort. And so I waited it out. And I did accomplish that at the time. But if it was a situation where they did quote me, yeah, we'll get you in the next cycle, maybe in the next 6 months, and they don't do it, then I believe it's your responsibility to realize that maybe it's not going to happen and some other company will value you for what you're able to do. So knowing when to get out is important too.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think a lot of people can sort of let their emotions get the best of them when they get passed over for things. Like if they don't get that raise or they don't get that promotion, to then say, okay, well, then I have to leave. And it sort of is like a temper tantrum in a sense. I've done it before. That's why I'm speaking about it right now. And so, yeah, I think there's something to be said for like waiting it out and having a more measured approach to things and not making career decisions based off of emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. But, in both situations, you do kind of have to check your ego at the door and start doing the work before you have the title. That's the only way. You can't expect to rise to a point and then just start doing what you're supposed to be doing. You have to demonstrate that you're capable, I think,
Yeah.
to some extent. So,
I mean, no one wants to work anymore.
actually going to reference that, like, I don't know. It's kind of an incendiary statement.
No,
But, I respect Kim a lot for her work ethic, if anything. Like, she has an incredible work ethic. So maybe she could have tailored that statement differently. But yeah,
yeah,
there's a little bit of truth to it.
that was rough, but also like usable.
Yes.
This is not a Kim K Stan podcast. I'm just putting that out there. We respect all successful women, but we're not fangirling over that particular one. Okay, so I want to share some more stats with you. Wall Street Journal is reporting remote workers are losing out on promotions and mentorship opportunities. So if you're a remote worker, potentially less likely to be promoted and or mentored. Are you remote?
I am fully remote. Yeah.
Okay. So you received all of these promotions over the last, 6 years. You're promoted 4 times over 6 years, which I think is insanely impressive. So what do you think remote workers, do you think they're at a disadvantage? Do you think remote workers are at a disadvantage? How do you think they can sort of overcome that? I'm a remote worker too, so I'm actually genuinely curious about what you have to say about that.
That is a really interesting side effect of this transition to work from home. I don't know if anyone has really given much thought about solving for it yet, but I think that there's ways that you can make the situation work for you. There are silver linings to it in my eyes. So I don't know about you, but I'm at a very Slack heavy company now. So all of the work that I do really doesn't stay with just me or my team. It's nearly publicly available. And I think that that's a huge advantage when you want to be up for promotion because you get to be loud about what you're doing. And I think that's important to be recognized across the board. Also being present, turn your camera on. It's not something that everyone likes to do all the time. I personally have to, because the second that my camera goes off, my eyes immediately shift elsewhere. I'm looking at the wall. I'm looking at something else. Maybe I'm still listening, but I'm not actively listening the way that I just was when my camera is on. So I think that's also important. Maybe a controversial take, but I don't actually see value in things like working late, quote unquote, anymore, because we have these flexible schedules now that we're working from home. And if you see someone's Slack bubble turn green in the middle of the night, I would never assume that they're just working so hard from 9 to 9 p.m. I would assume maybe they step down in the afternoons. They're coming back to check on something now. There really isn't value to kill yourself trying to turn your mouse on so that it looks like you're active. I think it's just important to do the work, show that you're doing the work, be loud about it, be present, and advocate for yourself.
I think that's really well said. I think that people just haven't caught on to all the ways yet that remote work can benefit you. I think I'm so much better at documenting my accomplishments as a remote worker now than I ever was before, because before I'd be chatting with my boss all the time in office, but now we have specific meetings where I go over, what I did that week. And, I did that in person too, but there's just a more gravitas over it when it's remote. And so I think I have such good documentation on my success as an employee that I didn't have before.
That's a great point. Mm-hmm.
I hope, yeah. I mean, obviously, like if you have an HQ and you're not going to it, I also think like those quarterly, company kickoffs or yearly or whatever are like such an important time to make an impact. Whenever I get the chance, like travel and meet up with coworkers in person, I always take it because I feel like even just them knowing you makes them more excited to work with you when your Slack message does come up. Uh, and some people might think that's like not super valuable, but I've seen it in action and it actually like truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so valuable to meet the person that you're talking to every day and get some actual FaceTime with them, because a lot of the times you realize like not everyone comes across the way that they want to come across online. Like it's just the truth. Some people are better at it than others. So it's sorry, you cut out. I didn't catch it.
Oh, I said some people on Slack come across awful, and then in person they're super
Yeah.
great.
Right, exactly. So it's really good to level set. Oh, that's why you're like that. Okay. We don't actually have a problem. It's just a communication error. So yeah, that kind of person is super valuable.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cool. So I want to close with something I like to ask all my guests. What would you say to your younger self about her career?
I think, the start of my career, being in my early mid 20s, I spent so much time and energy drowning in self doubt. I know I'm not alone in that. Imposter syndrome was rampant, and I don't think it goes away. Truly, you just get comfortable living with it at some point. And, I would say that I actually, I want to say something to the effect of like, don't stress out. It's all going to work out. You didn't need to put that level of stress on you, but I really do think it propelled me to the point that I'm at today. I found myself a couple times in my early 20s looking around at my friends and realizing like, I am so much more stressed out than everyone. Like, should I be having fun right now? Is this like, am I doing like 20s right? And I think there's so much commentary about what you should do in your 20s and 30s and 40s, but what you should do is what feels right to you. And what felt right to me at the time was to bust my ass and work hard. And I set myself up for foreseeably the rest of my life. So I'm so grateful for the effort that she put in. And I would tell her to buckle up.
Thanks for being a stress case, 20-something-year-old Roz. I was the same.
It's fine.
I think, and I had a guest on, Asha, and her and I were talking about like the level of work you put in your 20s is critical, and you are more willing to work. I do work smarter now, I think. But the amount of energy that I put towards my career in my 20s, I think you have the energy at that time. And I think you need to just do it. And I think everything you just said, it resonates with me so well. And like, I'd love to tell a younger version of myself, like, exactly, relax a little bit, but it's actually like, no, work hard, get it done.
You built the foundation that you stand on today.
Yeah.
You should be proud of that.
100%. Well, thank you, Roz. Thank you for telling us a little bit about you. I have 2 listener questions here. Our first one, and I want to plug, if anyone listening in has a question for one of our guests, just email Bri at careerdiariespodcast.com. That's BRI at careerdiariespodcast.com. And we'll have someone like Roz come on and answer your burning career questions. So this one's from Emily. More of a personal question. I got comfortable working from home over the last couple of years, and I'm dreading getting back into the conference scene. How do you get over the social anxiety of networking events?
That's a good question. I've had social anxiety my whole life. Nothing has changed. Pre-work from home and post-work from home. But that is a really good point. I think it's interesting because we're all in the same position. You're not the only one feeling that way. It's not like your industry was socializing without you. Like, you're not the odd one out in that situation. So that's actually a positive. The playing field has been leveled. I've always been a little weird. Now you're all weird. That's great. I think that's great. We should lean into that. And, use it as a talking point in these situations. I'm not scared to be vulnerable about the downsides of working from home. I have brought up in conversation the feeling of like my motivation. It's difficult to be motivated all the time at all hours of the day when I'm supposed to be. And I've never, ever heard a response other than, oh my gosh, me too. And it's just this moment of misery that you can talk about, like strategies. Hey, maybe you go to a coffee shop one day a week, just get a break in the scenery that you normally have. It'll help you focus. Take a walk in the middle of the day just to recharge your mind, step away from the computer. There's ways to get around these things, but we're all in the same position. So don't feel scared to be vulnerable about it.
Really well said. I love that. Okay, next question is from Clay. I've been working in tech sales for a few years now, and I'm looking for management opportunities. Any advice on getting to that next level?
So getting into management, I staunchly believe it's not meant for everybody. So I think that part of its progression into it is trying it out. I'm not saying go find someone on your team to semi-manage without anyone else's permission. That would cause a whole mess of problems. But, being in management, part of it is taking a step back from your day-to-day and looking at the efficiencies and inefficiencies of your team. And if you can spot some of those out, some of those inefficiencies might be someone is not getting the appropriate amount of attention they need. So working with them a little bit more closely, telling your manager that you're working with this person to solve X, Y, and Z. Here's the progress that you've made. Take on a light mentorship role. Don't tell them what to do, but work with them and see if you're even able to gel. Because if you're trying to get into management, I think you would have some sort of an idea of who that would be on the team that you would be managing. So point them out, start to work with them, and also assess for yourself, is this actually what I want to do? There are very, very good high-paying individual contributor roles that people can step into. And, I think there's a lot of good managers, but great ones are really hard to come by. So I think everyone should strive to be a great one.
I think that's so well said. I managed in my 20s and I wasn't ready for it. And I think back on it and I'm like, geez, like there's so much more I could have done for the person I was managing.
100%. I think you need to recognize that you have your own personal professional problems. And once you start managing, those will multiply. So be ready to tackle that person's problems and realize that yours aren't going away either. So there's a lot of time management and emotional management that goes into that learning experience for both people.
Hey, Roz, you're so wise.
I try.
Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up?
Absolutely. So my LinkedIn is under my full name, LinkedIn/Roz Hajian. And my email, I don't know if I want to include my email. Sorry. I guess we'll just leave it at LinkedIn.
Yeah. Find Roz on LinkedIn. We'll link it in the show notes so you can reach out to her there. And Roz, it's been so fun having you on the show. I appreciate you coming by.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Career Diaries podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review to help get word out about the show. Email Bree@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss another conversation.